Hey, girl, hey. Welcome to the Purity After Promiscuity podcast, where we are redefining a woman's worth. I am your host, Jenna Renee, and we are here once again for another episode in our eighth season, the season of new beginnings. And we are talking about things that are rooted and things that are getting uprooted. So, excuse me, you guys. I don't know. I feel like these allergies are something else. I just walked my dog outside, y'all, and as I walked him outside, all of a sudden I just started coughing and hacking, feeling like something in my throat. I feel sinus pressure. So excuse me. I keep feeling like I gotta clear my throat. Like I don't know what's going on. I know it's pollen everywhere. It's all just floating all in the air, and so it just ain't my it ain't gonna win. I got the victory over allergies in Jesus' name. So I am so sorry, guys. But without further ado, we're going to get started. I'm going to release the countdown, and I am super excited to talk about today's episode. So here we go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, girl. Y'all, I'm so sorry. I keep clearing my throat. I don't know. Like, this is so crazy. Like, I don't know. I want y'all to tap in. Like, I didn't grow up having allergies. I've never been allergic to food or anything like that. I never had any type of sensitivities. And so, like, this thing is new for me. And I just can't wrap my mind around it, to be honest. Like, I can't wrap my mind around, excuse me, just being out in outside in nature. It causes your whole body to like go like have all of these kind of responses like sinus pressure, sinus, headache, sinus pain. My ears was hurting and popping, coughing, sneezing, itchy eyes, itchy nose, like sometimes itchy, like feeling like hives, like this is insane. And so if you have experienced some allergies or you grew up with allergies or you kind of have had to navigate that and you have some tips, let me know. Hit me up in the comments, y'all, and let me know because I'm over here like, this is diabolical. Okay? This is just diabolical. Like, why? I just walked my dog. And now I gotta keep on coughing and clearing my throat and I got my water next to me, so y'all might hear me take a gulp to help, because this is crazy. But I digress. We're here. I'm here. I'm not gonna let these allergies win. I'm coming and I'm gonna talk about today's episode and it's around the mountain. Have y'all ever had this sense in your life where you feel like you just keep going round and round the mountain? Like you're just kind of in this cycle. You just keep being in this cycle like you're not ever coming away from this pattern, right? You just feel like, as elevation or as progress and as advancement is the goal is the desire, some way somehow you just kind of feel like you just keep being in the same place, but time is going on but you're not really going nowhere. you know when I was seeking the Lord on what I should title today's episode and I heard around the mountain, immediately I was put in the mind of the children of Israel. And just thinking about how they went around the mountain and how they continued to just kind of be on this journey that turned from 11 days to 40 years. And they just kept going around this mountain and they had a destination. And God had, and here's the thing that God had the destination for them. The destination was always theirs and it was always for them. But it was something about their behavior and something about their mindset that prevented them from reaching the destination in a timely fashion. So I've been really pondering on my own behaviors lately. I've been pondering on the patterns in my own life that has led me to some of feeling like I'm just going around the mountain. It's like I just keep going around the mountain. Like, year 2026, 2025, 2024, it's like I have all of these dreams. I have aspirations. I'm gifted. I'm talented. I have a business. Actually, I have other, other things that I have been building or have built. And but for some reason, it's like I have not yet been able to scale the business and grow the ministry and just really reach that level of success in life, and not just in financially, but I'm even talking about like in my family. I'm talking about, even within myself, like my personal goals for my physical health, and for just in advancing, my mind, and broadening my horizons, and traveling, and accomplishing personal goals that I say set aside for myself, stuff even with my children, just so on and so forth. It's almost like I have everything that I need to get where I want to go, but for some reason I just cannot seem to keep momentum. It's like I get momentum, but I can't keep momentum. And so I've been, sitting back and kind of pondering, just like, Lord, what is causing me to keep being in this space? What is causing me to keep moving forward? And, you know, sometimes things are influenced by outside forces. And I'm gonna call a spade a spade. Sometimes it's warfare. Sometimes it is the enemy. Sometimes the enemy is using different means, whether it's a generational curse, whether it's temptation, whether he's using somebody who has offered themselves over to him, such as someone in the occult, someone in New Age witchcraft, or just someone coming against you. They don't like you, they hate you, they jealous, they got envy, competition, and they're sabotaging you, and sometimes it's just you. Okay, sometimes it's you. And so, under just learning how to navigate the difference, and sometimes it's a combination, right? And learning how to navigate, yourself and your circumstances to the point where you're able to not just identify the source or the root, but that you're able to actually uproot it. Come on, somebody. Because it's not enough to just know the problem. You have to bring a resolution. And for me, I do think it's the latter of the things that I mentioned just here a few seconds ago. Is I think it's a combination of things. But I think the greatest commonality and common denominator is me. And I like to be very sober with myself in this season. Like there are seasons where I put a lot of the blame on the enemy, and I'm sure some of that was valid. But in this season, I really want to be intentional to have a sober mind concerning me, because there are some truths here that I'm gonna just kind of give my own testimony in this. And I'm praying that it can help somebody, because what we got to do is we have to utilize all resources, and we have to be willing to do our part. I find that sometimes we inadvertently or even subconsciously lean totally on God, in the sense that we expect him to do everything for us. We expect him, to change our circumstances for us. We expect him to come and, work the situation out for us. And it's not to say that he cannot, but it is to say, when we hear in the book of James that faith without works is dead, that we have some actions to do, even if that's just to believe. Because I find that true belief is harder than we think, because we are in this flesh, we're in this world where everything is filtered through our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions, and even our experiences. So sometimes we get caught up in what we see. And therefore, we come out of faith because we are focusing on the reality, and now we're no longer believing that God can or will. And so for me, I'm like, there are some things that I could physically be doing to improve my own situation. That's truth, right? Like I think about my business, and I think about suggestions that I believe were God sent. I think about even the downloads that I've received via Holy Spirit concerning different services, concerning really scaling the business, concerning adding, certain certain luxury services, and so on and so forth. Marketing, marketing in certain ways. Many times people like, Janelle, you don't want to do content. Why are you not doing content? What are you doing? Like, I mean, my clients be on me, and I have amazing clients. I really do. And the truth is, because I don't like it, because I don't want to feel like I got a second job by doing content, creating a video, creating a reel, editing, doing all of these things, that I don't do it. Meanwhile, I'm over here constantly going around the same mountain of, God, I need this thing. I need that thing. And yes, we are to be totally dependent on God. We are to totally look to him to be our source and our strength. Absolutely. But I think that it does us a disservice if we are constantly asking God to do the same thing over and over. Like, there's a point where things should shift. We should no longer need him to come do this particular thing on this level. Like, we should not have to keep asking God to come and pay our light bill every month. At some point, God will give you a download. He'll give you a seed. He'll give you an idea, and you should be able to pay your own light bill. And the next thing, your prayer, it should be something bigger. Lord, I need you to help me buy this house. Lord, I need you to help me buy this property, help me to buy this building, help me to, get out of debt, whatever the case may be. But it should be from faith to faith. And oftentimes we too content with being on a certain faith level. So we're constantly asking God to pay the light bill because that's the level of faith that we have. So we don't dare ask God for, to pay the mortgage. Or, we don't ask God to do something bigger because our faith is on the electric bill level. And I get it. We go through hard times. Sometimes you need God to come through, and it's something as small as the electric bill. Sometimes people's electric bill is high. It's in the thousands, so it ain't like it's a small amount of money. But any and all things that we can dare or dream, even the biggest dream we can ask of God, is still a light thing for him to do. It is still small. But for some reason, at least for me, I feel like my faith is small. And my faith is small not because I don't believe that God is able to do all things. It's because I'm not willing to take the action step in faith, to believe, to show God in faith I'm believing for what I'm asking for. So I'm believing for him to increase my business, but I'm not doing the faith step of creating content. Like, I'm believing for him to send me more clients, but I'm not doing the faith step of marketing the new services that I recently got certified in, that will take me from one financial bracket to a whole nother. But yet and still, I'm constantly sitting here like, God, I need you to help me pay this and this thing every week. It's the same thing every week. I'm looking at, I get to see my revenue for the week before my week start, because my booking site showed me based on how many appointments that I have scheduled so far, kind of what I'm gonna make for that week. And every week I'm looking like, God, if you gonna have to come through. It's not enough because I got this bill and that bill and that bill and that bill and that bill. Meanwhile, God has called me to do so much more, to be so much more. And so many people that he's called me to influence, to touch, and so many things called me to establish, so much ministry he's called me to do, and even to just be a blessing to others, that those things are so far beyond what I'm even striving for, because I'm so focused on, God, I need you to every time I turn around, it's the same request. I need you to help me pay this thing. I need you to, and I'm like, at what point do I go from faith to faith? Or what point do my circumstances change? What point do I stop going around the mountain? So I had to be honest with myself, and I'm like, Janelle, maybe, yes, it could be warfare. It could be. Yes, it could be a generational curse, a demonic spirit, because there is a pattern in my bloodline of people making bad unwise decisions, whether it's an unwise decision in relationships, an unwise decision in money, an unwise decision just in general, right? There is a pattern I have been very much noticing more and more here lately, that cycle. So I'm like, okay, that got to break. So, but I also got to be willing, because something I heard on a podcast a couple weeks ago. I don't know what happened, y'all, but my thing just cut off. I apologize. I don't know what that was about. I'm gonna try to go in and edit that part. However, I heard this guy say on a podcast, about how if you have an area of weakness, like say financial stewardship, he said when he and his wife were poor stewards, they was dealing with poverty, they had was in lack and all of that, that they read every book that they could get their hands on finances. And eventually your mindset changes about finances. When they got married and they were having trouble in their marriage early on, and they were dealing with some marital issues, they began to read books on how to have a healthy marriage, or how to overcome, this particular issue in marriage, or whatever the case may be. He was like, whatever you have a deficit in, you need to immerse yourself in that thing so that you're able to change your mind, like renew your mind, so then you can adopt new behavior. And I have books on finance. I have a certification to be a financial coach. I have been in finance as a career because I have been a licensed insurance agent and I was a financial representative. And even with all of that, I haven't really read the books. I haven't really went over the material. I even follow like certain podcasts and things that they talk about finance. I don't really be listening to that. It's like I'm not doing in faith to show God that I am believing him for what I'm asking for. I'm constantly asking for the wisdom to be a good steward, or to change my financial situation, but I'm not willing to do the things that it takes to do that. Y'all, I'm sorry. Y'all might hear me like slapping something, or because there's this little tiny bug that must have came in when I opened the door, and it's flying around, and it's really distracting me. So I've been trying to be quiet, but I don't know. I haven't caught it, so it just keeps flying near me. Anyway, so it's like, in order to stop going around the mountain, we have to be willing to, number one, to be sober when we are examining ourselves and our circumstances. And we also have to be sober and when we are looking at what is the source of something. Because sometimes the source is not what we think. It's not always a demon. It's not always demonic. It's not always the adversary. Sometimes we're just not doing the things that we need to do in faith. We're not willing to do the uncomfortable thing. We're not willing to do the hard thing. We're not willing to operate in discipline because those things are uncomfortable. So we tend to lead towards comfort. So if I want to lose weight, which I do, that's a real goal of mine. But I had not been doing the things that it takes to lose weight. I had not started exercising. I had not started changing my diet. I had not started, getting more serious about my health. But I'm constantly, wishing and hoping that my weight a change. And it's like, it don't work like that. In the same way that thinking that our life is just going to change just because we wish it to do so. It's like, no, we have to be willing to get uncomfortable. And even if it's just for a season, you have to really change those bad habits. Maybe you're not a reader. You don't want to read a bunch of books. Listen to podcasts. You have podcast, audio, video. You have people that are doing conferences. You got virtual conferences, webinars. You have so many resources at your fingertips to immerse yourself in whatever it is you're struggling with, right? Well, even if it's spiritual, even if it is something the enemy is doing. There are so many things, like you got videos on YouTube where ministers and churches are doing series and teachings. You have people who are in ministry that give people their email to reach out to them who need help and who need deliverance, or who need a one-on-one call. You have, things like, the number one, if it's spiritual in nature, even if it's natural, you got the Bible at your fingertips. The Bible give you the answer to everything: finances, family, marriage, health, right? All the things. So you got the Bible, number one, and then we have all these other resources. And sometimes we want the quick route. We want to go the detour, right? We want to take the shortcut. But sometimes it's the journey that's important. Come on, somebody. And even though Israel was never meant to take a 40-year journey, that was a result of their faithlessness. That was a result of their hard-headedness. They were stiff-necked, hard-headed, disobedient, and so on and so forth. So they as a result of their own choices added them 40 years. But God still worked it together for their good, because it still was the journey. They still had the memorial and the remembrance of how God brought them through over and over again, how he fed them from manna from the sky, how he provided meat, how their sandals never wore out those 40 years, how they were sustained in the desert land, how he let water come, how he had water come out of the rock. Like, there was parts of the journey that was meant to be an encouragement, and also a pillar for their faith as they continue to know God and to walk with him and to trust him. And so therefore, sometimes the journey could have been meant to be short. Maybe it wasn't supposed to take you till you was in your 40s or 30s. Maybe it was you could have accomplished these things in your 20s, but you didn't, and I didn't. But God still is using the journey, and he's still showing us, and he's still revealing parts of himself. He's still encouraging us. He is still, strengthening us and increasing our faith as he walks with us through every season, through every year. There are many things I've experienced. I've experienced lack. I experienced poverty. I experienced homelessness. I experienced losing everything. I experienced the extreme high of being wealthy, like truly wealthy, and I experienced the extreme low of having lost everything. And through it all, I still have my mind. My children, never missed a beat. We always had food. We never was in harm's way. We was always safe. We always had clothes. We might not have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed. And in the same way, he said to Israel, like, your sandals didn't even wear out. You did all that walking. You did all that journeying. You did all that, walking on them shoes, but they still never wore out, because that's how God is. He sustains us even when we cause our journey to be longer. But there's a time. There's a time that you should stop going around the mountain. There's a time that you should reach that place called destiny. There's a time that you should get to the location of the place that God has for you, that he was sending you, the promised land. See, Israel was not going just to a place. They was going to the promised land. And there were certain things that was connected to that promised land. And that land was fruitful. It was flowing with milk and honey. It was fertile. It was abundant. They talked about when they sent the 12 spies out, how the grapes they brought back were so large that they had to be carried on their shoulders. So that lets you know, like, just how fertile and just how blessed this place was, this land was. Because God don't just give you just anything. He gives you the best. But Israel had to be willing to humble themselves. They had to be willing to get Egypt out of them. They were used to serving foreign gods. They were used to the way of life in Egypt. They were used to listening and depending on Pharaoh. They were used to that because for over 400 years they were in captivity. So now God had to process them. It wasn't overnight that Egypt was able to come out of them. It took time. It took time. It's just like sometimes it takes us time. But what I can say is your life not going to change until you change. And the first thing that got to change is your mind. You have to change your mind. You have to make a choice. You have to have a resolve in yourself that I'm no longer going to go around this mountain. I'm no longer going to repeat this cycle. I'm no longer going to settle for mediocrity. I'm no longer going to lean into comfort, but I'm willing to get uncomfortable if that means that it's going to take me to my destination. Even for me, like I said, if I would have been doing content, I probably would be so booked. I would probably have not money probably wouldn't be a problem. But I keep leaning to my own understanding. This is why the Bible tells us in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Because sometimes God is going to tell you things that you don't to do that you don't like. Or that make you uncomfortable, or that's not easy for you to do. I don't like to do social media because it's not really easy for me to do. I like to do things that come to me easily, and that's a lot of things. And I'm not even gonna say social like content creation and social media doesn't. I'm not interested. I'll say that I'm not interested. So, like most people, when you're not interested in something, you don't want to put no effort into it. But what if that's the key to unlock the things, the very blessing that I've been asking God for? What have God been telling you to do that you have not been willing to do? Because maybe it's that very thing that's going to unlock whatever it is you've been believing for. It might be something as simple as social media. It might be something bigger. It might be to leave a job. It might be to relocate. It might be to change your diet. It might be to, who knows, right? But what is that thing that God has told you to do that you have not done? Or what are the things that you are believing God for that you have not done a faith move? You have not acted in faith. That you're just sitting complacent and stagnant and praying and hoping and wishing and expecting God to just change the circumstance, to just come through, to answer the prayer, to make the way. And not to say He won't, but you're doing absolutely nothing. You're sitting idle. God blesses the God is into movement. He's into movement. Like, yes, there are times that we have a season that God tells us to be still and to rest and all of that. But then there's a lot of the times it's like God is on the move. God is forever moving. And there are just parts of this journey that requires a partnership. You have to partner with the Lord. You have to give him something to work with. And I know this ain't new information for most. This is stuff that we know, especially if you've been a believer for any length of time, especially if you read your Bible, especially if you go to a good Bible teaching church. You realize quickly that this is a journey that you have to participate. This is not just a sit on the sideline. You got to get in the game. And until you decide that you're willing to step out of comfort into the realm of faith. And faith comes with it risk. With faith comes with it uncertainty because you really sometimes don't know how it's going to work out. You just trust that it will. Sometimes it's just you got to be uncomfortable. You got to do the things that you don't like. You got to do the things you don't want to do. Jesus said, not my will, but thy will be done. You have to stop going around the mountain. The cycle has to end with you. It doesn't matter if that cycle been in your generation for centuries, decades. It has to stop with you. Same with me. It has to stop with me. I can't have my children stuck in this cycle. Somebody got to be willing to break the cycle. Somebody got to be willing to say, it ends with me. That I'm not going to sit around and just expect God. or anyone to just do everything for me, then I'm going to be willing to walk in faith. I'm going to be willing to have crazy radical faith. I'm going to be willing to partner with God, to obey, to get uncomfortable. Those are the people who God uses. When you get radical with God, I'm going to tell you. And because I've had seasons like that where I was so radically obedient and I was just so radically like faith filled that it didn't matter what God said. I was on it. I have it is several times that I'm talking about I had no money. None. I was literally a stay-at-home mom. I was a homeschool mom. I was living off of the public assistance, living in public housing, didn't have my own car, was driving my brother's car because my car got totaled in a car accident. And I mean, I had no money, but I believe that that I was going to buy a house, that it was God's will for me to have ownership. And it is, because God is a God of ownership. When you can read the Bible, He gave ownership to Israel. Nevertheless, I believe that God was going to bless me with buying a house, and not just any house. So I'm gonna just let y'all know how crazy my faith was. Not just any house. I was going to the one of the most affluent areas, looking at houses that were hundreds of thousands of dollars. I even looked at some houses that were millions. I had hired a I had hired a realtor. We were going to showings. I had wrote oh God, what kind of letter it was? We were asking for the oh gosh, what is it? The sellers something, like we were literally moving along in this process, like I literally had a pre-approval and had money and was able to get to fund this house. But that was the kind of faith that I had. I was fully persuaded. Nobody could tell me different. It's like my circumstance didn't matter. I just believed God. And in that particular season, did I get a house that was, that cost that much or in that kind of neighborhood? No, but I eventually did. I eventually did. I eventually built a house from the ground up in a brand new community in a very nice area. And so you got to get to that place. Like, it was illogical. It made no sense. Some days I mean, I think I even fooled myself some of those days, really, to think like, I think I really believed God so much so that I really thought like, as if I could have just signed on the dotted line, as if I could have just literally been like, okay, put in the offer. I mean, I got story after story, y'all. I mean, I just do. I got story after story. But the other component to that season was I was spending a whole lot of time with God. I was reading the Bible a lot. I was constantly feeding my spirit, and I was being encouraged constantly. So my spirit was very strong, and I just was in a place where me and God, we was walking close, like, how Adam was walking, and God was walking in the cool of the day. Like, we was in close intimacy and fellowship, and that brought with it just a closeness with God and a trust. And in that trust, the faith was easy, and I was able to just do things just purely on faith alone. And God is not a liar. He's not a man that he should lie. Because, like I said, I indeed got one of those houses that I was looking at, and I did tell God. I said, Lord, I really don't want a house someone else lived in. I want a new construction home, and I actually was able to build a new construction home from the ground up. So, I mean, God is not a liar. So, I mean, I'm just here to say that we got to make the necessary changes. We got to take the necessary steps. And so we can stop going around the mountain, because some of us been going around that mountain almost 40 years. And God is like, it's time for you to go into your promised land. And so I just admonish you that today we want to uproot just the idea of comfortability, the idea of even just making poor decisions, or expecting God to do every single part and us not doing anything but prayer, but asking, but petition. right? But declaring and decreeing and binding and loosing. And while those things are great, you have to actually make a move. You believe for a job, you got to fill out an application. You believe for a house, you got to, go to a showing, apply for a pre approval. You got to do something. And I'll end with this. One thing I said to a friend of mine this morning on the phone, we were having a great conversation, which we always do. And I was telling her about my times of just reflecting and pondering, like thinking about what were the things that were hindering me from from really obtaining the life that I believe God has for me. And I told her, I said, I think one of the things that I struggle with is, it, for whatever reason in this season, is almost like I either have to see it or see enough evidence of it before I move. What do I mean by that? So before I do whatever it is that I know that I might need to do to partner with God and what I'm believing for, it's like I need to see some kind of evidence that God is for sure certainly going to do it, or that is going to happen, right? And so I tend to just sit and I end up doing nothing because I'm constantly waiting on God to do something first, where in most cases God is waiting for me to do something first. And when we operate from that place, we're constantly going to be in a place of complacency and stagnation. And we're going to constantly feel like we got to be in warfare, and we got a demonic delay, and we got some kind of demon or some kind of witch and warlock, or it's some kind of outside force, when the real is, it's you. It's me. It's me. And so we need a mindset shift, y'all. We need to uproot some of these things. And yes, again, some of them may be generational. I know for me that is a contributing factor. But I can't use that and continue to, just have that as an excuse. Okay, it's a reality, but now what? So I hope today's episode blessed you. If it did, please let me know. Please feel free to reach out to me in the comments. And if you are able to leave a review, if you're able to follow, like, subscribe, share with your community, whatever platform that you're listening on, you can engage and you can start a conversation. I will reply for sure. And I would love to hear from you all. So I just thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Purity of After Promiscuity podcast, where we are redefining a woman's worth. I'm your host, Janelle Renee, and I want to remind you that your past does not define you. It develops you, and you are worthy.